On a backyard patio, a man climbs onto a wooden pergola to reposition an air conditioning unit. When he transfers his weight onto the crossbeam, the lightweight timber begins to shift. Never use decorative architectural features such as pergolas, trellises, or sunshades as load-bearing work platforms. On this residential street corner, two men stand engaged in conversation, unaware that a blue delivery truck is reversing toward their position. Never reverse a commercial truck without first verifying rear clearance or using a trained ground spotter. Large delivery vehicles have significant blind zones where mirrors alone do not provide full coverage. When a driver reverses without direct confirmation of the area behind the vehicle, the risk of contacting unseen obstacles increases substantially. To prevent this, drivers must apply the get out and look method before shifting into reverse when visibility is limited. If the rear area cannot be clearly observed, a designated spotter must guide the maneuver using standardized hand signals and continuous communication. High above a large steel-reinforced excavation zone, a worker attempts to step down from the deck of a loaded flatbed truck without verifying his footing. Never step down facing forward from the deck of a truck, especially when parked near an unprotected elevation change or trench. A flatbed deck sits several feet above ground level. Exiting without maintaining secure handholds or visual confirmation of footing significantly increases the probability of a loss of balance event. To prevent this, always face the vehicle and maintain 3 points of contact when mounting or dismounting heavy equipment. Drivers must establish safe parking distances away from trenches or elevation transitions whenever possible. On a water. On a residential construction site, a worker walks across exposed metal framing and steps onto an unbolted steel joist. The beam then shifts under off-center pressure. Never walk across unsecured joists or skeletal frameworks without temporary decking or elevated protection systems in place. Steel members that are not yet welded or bolted lack lateral restraint and can rotate or shift when loaded unevenly. Install temporary planking or structural decking before navigating open framing grids. Treat every unsecured structural component as potentially mobile until it is permanently fastened, inspected, and verified. On a rural roadside, two workers stand inside the raised bucket of a backhoe loader to reach a utility pole. The elevated load raises the machine's center of gravity, reducing stability. Never use a front loader bucket as a substitute for a certified aerial work platform. Earth-moving equipment is designed for material handling near ground level, not for safely elevating personnel. Always use approved equipment such as bucket trucks, articulated boom lifts, or scissor lifts for elevated access tasks. Machines must only be operated within their engineered design parameters. Attempting to adapt equipment beyond its intended function significantly increases operational instability. In an industrial yard, a mobile crane lowers a large metal framework onto a flatbed truck. As the load extends outward, the operating radius exceeds the crane's rated capacity, reducing stability. Never lower or extend a load without confirming that the final operating radius remains within rated capacity. As the boom angle changes, leverage increases proportionally. If that leverage exceeds engineered limits, structural balance may be reduced. Lift plans must calculate load capacity for the final set-down position, not solely the initial hoist point. Operators must continuously monitor load moment indicators and respond immediately if readings approach maximum thresholds. Inside a stockroom, a worker walks forward while focused on his phone, unaware of an open floor hatch directly ahead. Never walk through active work environments while distracted by a mobile device. Divided attention significantly reduces hazard recognition and environmental awareness. Install high-visibility guardrails or barrier systems around open floor penetrations and ensure protective covers are secured whenever the opening is not actively in use. Establish designated no-phone zones in higher-risk operational areas where floor openings, lift equipment, or mobile carts are present. If device use is necessary, stop walking and relocate to a controlled, hazard-free location. In a loading bay, a forklift uses a boom attachment to lift a large cylindrical tank. As the load extends forward, the center of gravity shifts, and the load moves to the side. Never lift a load exceeding a forklift's rated capacity, particularly when using attachments that alter load center distance. Attachments reduce allowable lifting thresholds and increase forward leverage forces. Always verify load weight against the forklift's adjusted capacity. Chart, including any derating requirements associated with installed attachments. Maintain clearly defined exclusion zones around elevated loads and ensure bystanders remain outside the operational perimeter. On a factory floor, a worker stands close to an operating wire winding drum, placing himself within the rotating equipment's entanglement zone. Never reach into or stand within the operating envelope of rotating machinery. Industrial motors generate significant torque, and once material becomes engaged within a moving assembly, inward mechanical force can draw items toward rotating components rapidly. Follow lockout and tagout procedures before servicing, clearing obstructions, or adjusting feet alignment. Keep hands, clothing, and accessories clear of powered rotating systems. In a construction staging yard, a worker walks between stacks of metal sheet piles as a crane begins lifting nearby. Lateral force from the rigging causes the unsecured stack to shift sideways. Never stand or pass between stacked heavy materials during active lifting operations. Rigging forces can transfer sideways pressure to adjacent unsecured stacks, influencing material alignment. Maintain clearly defined exclusion zones around lifting activities. In a narrow alleyway, a forklift begins rolling backwards toward a parked pickup truck. A nearby worker instinctively moves closer in an attempt to stop it. Never, ever place yourself between moving equipment and a fixed object. This is a serious restricted movement zone risk. Industrial vehicles carry significant mass and momentum even at very low speeds. When two solid objects move toward each other, the space between them becomes an increasingly unsafe narrowing gap with no reliable escape path. To prevent this, accept that equipment contact or property damage is always preferable to personal risk. Inside a high bay warehouse, a bent brace holds up a pallet rack. At first glance, it looks fine, but something isn't right. Never overlook damaged or deformed rack components. A compromised brace reduces the system's designed load handling capability. When one element does not perform as intended, stress is transferred to surrounding components, increasing strain across the structure. You must report rack damage immediately and isolate the affected area until repairs are completed. Treat visible deformation as a priority concern because storage systems depend on balanced load distribution to maintain long-term stability.